morning, good afternoon, and welcome to the SASE breakout. In this session, we're joined by three vendors with leading technology for this high growth market. It's a great group with representation from both the networking and the security market. The speakers we have today are Joe Bombaghi, Director for SASE Systems Engineering at Palo Alto Networks. We've got Mike Contort, the channel lead for SD-WAN at Extreme Networks. And last but not least, Matthias Johnson, a solutions engineer at Broadcom Software, formerly Symantec. We have a packed agenda, so let's get started. Please use the text chat to ask questions or comment. If we can't respond to all questions right away, we will follow up with you directly after the event. Joe, I think we're starting with you, so over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon. Well, good morning, I should still say. My name is Joe Bombaghi. I'm going to walk you through the Palo Alto Prisma SASE offering. So I'm going to just sort of start with giving a bit of background on what the market looks like, what SASE as a technology space looks like, and what we've sort of done to bring all of that together. And then just going to walk through some of the use cases that we're seeing with our customers that might be relevant for you to work through. And then I'm going to just talk through around some of the the services related capabilities that the solution brings as well. So as a starting point, just to sort of all get on the same page as far as what's actually driving SASE, it's probably an obvious one, but it's very much around the hybrid work use case. One of the things we saw, obviously a couple of years ago was that, of course, that overnight shift from, office-based working to home-based working. And SASE was a very nice, elegant, quick, scalable and elastic solution for all of our customers because they were able to essentially overnight shift all of their users to home, but without the issue of, losing security or losing performance or losing, operability or even having the, the scalability and cost to sort of make that work. And obviously, we've been sort of seeing that pivot and shift back towards, users working more and more from the office. But one thing that, of course, we all know is there's probably no rule around, who's going to be working from home, who's going to be working from the office, because the answer is essentially it's going to be hybrid, at least for the foreseeable future. Now, when you think about the hybrid workforce and you think about hybrid applications, hosted from public cloud and SaaS and on-prem data centers, the only meeting point for all of those things effectively is in the cloud. So what SASE really is really about shifting all of the capabilities of networking and security into a single cloud delivered service, which I'll talk through more in a minute. But again, we've seen a huge shift towards that, and with Palo Alto's huge customer base, this is something that all of our customers are essentially doing. Just to give you a bit of a view of at least what we've seen with our analysts around the SASE market and why this is gathering so much attention from our partner base is you can kind of see the growth from left to right towards what the SASE business looks like now. And by the way, these are just EMEA numbers, and what we're expecting to see over the next couple of years. But what's also important is, and again, I'll walk through this a little more in a minute, when you sort of break down SASE into all of the key components, starting from firewall as a service capability, CASB capabilities, SD-WAN, of course, which often gets forgotten and certainly shouldn't. It's a huge part of the offering. And then other technologies like, secure web gateways and zero trust approaches. All of those things come together to form SASE. And it's interesting to see that breakdown. And where we're seeing a lot of our customers do this very smartly is to shift from that, point solution based approach to selling something that might form part of a SASE portfolio into selling everything that forms part of a SASE portfolio. Because, we are seeing our customers deploy this stuff in one hit, in one project with one budget, and starting to bring those silos together from an operational perspective. So it's certainly a huge market there. And if we look at Palo Alto and what our growth has been in our Prisma SASE offering over the last couple of years, the trajectory certainly matches what we see on the screen here, and where we're likely to see a lot more growth from that perspective. So just breaking it down, what is Palo Alto's flavor of SASE? If we look at what the analysts say, SASE is, it's this convergence of networking and security delivered from the cloud. For us, we've been building this for quite a few years, long before Palo Alto coined the term SASE. And it was great to get that verification of what we were building. But for us, and where Palo Alto starts to differentiate, and I'm going to walk through some of this a little more in a minute, is that when you look at all of the components of SASE, so if you look at the middle layer here, which is the security layer of SASE, it can't just be one or two of those things. It needs to be everything. If our customers can't shift their security capabilities from the edge into the cloud and do it all in a single fully integrated solution, then we've effectively failed. If we're going to our customers and saying you need 3 or 4 separate point solutions to deliver security from the cloud, then let's try and plug it together with a random SD-WAN solution, and then let's get some random bits of visibility tooling to wrap it around. It doesn't really work. So what we've really done here is these 3 layers of having all-in security. So we're able to provide cloud-delivered security for all applications, all protocols, all traffic, leaving nothing on the table, with full inspection from start to finish, wrapping it together with next generation Prisma SD-WAN for the perimeter, and then having our autonomous digital experience management in the middle there, which kind of gives us this SASE native visibility capability. So they're the kind of 3 layers of SASE for us. And we can kind of also break that down into what we would see as 6 very common use cases. Now, there are a lot more use cases than this that SASE addresses, but I thought I'll just try and quickly break down a few of the key ones. Now, what tends to lead SASE is these bits in the middle here. Tends to be led by remote access, tends to be led by our customers saying, we've got all of these customers at home, users at home. We've got security scattered everywhere. We might have next-gen firewalls in branches and data centers and various other bits of internet and cloud-based security. Instead of building a completely separate and segmented remote access solution, why not resolve the remote access problem with the remote branch problem, which is delivered via SD-WAN, and then also added all the other internet security components, as I said, like internet security and SaaS-based security and so on. So rather than having what would often be at least 6 separate point solutions to deliver some of this capability, what we've done here is wrapped it all in one. But more importantly, what our customers are doing are also wrapping these projects all in one. And what we're seeing our partners successfully do is start to wrap all of this stuff together in one as well. And we're seeing some of our partners, I guess, steal business away from their own competition because they're able to wrap up what their competitors were doing, in this one solution. So these are really common ones and rare to be able to resolve all of those in one hit. So very briefly, just to sort of walk through what's under the hood in our SASE offering before we go into a little more detail on sort of how to deliver a service like this. What's really important to understand is when we talk about cloud delivered security, we haven't just gone and randomly created a bunch of security capability and put it in the cloud. What we've done here is we've effectively taken all of the advanced security capabilities that Palo Alto is already known for, and then think of it as we've shifted that form factor. Instead of it coming in the form of a hardware firewall in a branch or a data center, it's delivered from a huge global scaled, hugely elastic firewall in the cloud, if you like. So Prisma Access is made up of something like 120 odd locations around the world. And what those locations provide is a gateway and an entry point for any of the scenarios you see at the bottom here. So whether it's mobile users, data centers, branches, factories, retail outlets, banks, whatever it may be, all of those devices and people connect into a gateway that's geographically close to them. And then that enters them into this giant Prisma Access security cloud in the middle, which can deliver all of the advanced security capability. And that's kind of what makes it really unique from a security perspective, is that you don't need to do all of these things separately in separate point solutions. And the other thing is, there's obviously a huge amount of customers out there who already trust Palo Alto for all of this security capability. So this is the sort of next generation of shifting that, let's say, more traditional, more legacy Palo Alto customer, or even just any next-gen firewall customer, into a more advanced, next generation cloud delivered service. Now, this map kind of shows you what's under the hood for Prisma Access. I won't go into any detail here, but what it does mean is you don't need to build anything for your customers, right? You don't need to stand up data centers. You don't need to build any infrastructure. You don't need to build any, tooling for operations or anything like that. This is really think of it as a SaaS delivered service from Palo Alto. It's built on top of best of breed backbones, which, for example, makes use of, whether it's GCP, AWS, Azure, and various others to basically give us that global reach. So the simplicity of transforming our customers very quickly from what they have into this next generation type service, and your ability to stand it up for them quickly and operate it and manage it for them quickly, if that's what you're what you're doing in your business, is very quick and very frictionless from that perspective. The other thing, just to touch on here quickly, again, when it comes to value for customers, SD-WAN is often spoken about as a secure connectivity mechanism, and it's not to say that that's not the case, but SD-WAN is a lot more than that. And what we've delivered here with Prisma SD-WAN, which is the SD-WAN edge of our Prisma SASE service, is rather than just delivering what we see on the left here, which is a kind of network-based approach to saying, let's send application traffic either on this network or on that network, and if that network's down, we'll send it up that network. That's not SD-WAN. That's not advanced technology. What we're really doing here on the right-hand side is, if you think about all of the users that would be working from an office sitting behind an SD-WAN layer, there's going to be many users doing many things and many applications going on in the background, which translates to hundreds and thousands of application sessions, traversing the network. What we're really doing here on the right-hand side with our SD-WAN is, rather than just looking at what the network is doing, the prime thing we're doing is looking at what real-time application sessions are actually doing for real end users. And by determining what the performance is and what the end user experience is for every single individual user and every single individual application that they're using, we're determining what is going to give the best response time, the best end user experience from where they are in a branch office to wherever that application may be, including in SaaS delivered applications, and then using autonomous self-healing to redirect application sessions based on what gives the user the best response. Now, that's a lot different than using SD-WAN to just make sure you have connectivity from user to application. This is really about making sure users get the absolute best possible performance as a result of that. And that's quite unique. And that's why we call it next generation SD-WAN, because it's application-based traffic steering as opposed to just network-based traffic steering, which is quite nice and quite unique. And then sort of lastly, just from a sort of technology standpoint, and this is I guess probably understated, and I tend to talk about this bit a lot, and our customers love hearing about this, because the reality is, if we're asking our customers to shift everything from what was a very controlled on-prem environment to a much less controlled, mostly or largely off-prem environment, with internet and SaaS and networks that are probably unmanaged and applications that theoretically are unmanaged, at least by our customers, they're not. So what our native SASE visibility, and we call it ADEM, Autonomous Digital Experience Management, what it's really doing here is looking at every single traffic flow. So whether it's coming from a user at home, and what ADEM does is it measures the performance from the user device, their home Wi-Fi, their routers, their ISP connections, all the way through their cloud security layer, and then all the way onto the final application destination. We're measuring every single segment from user to application, even when it's completely unmanaged. And we're able to give our customers tooling and visibility on what performance looks like and where issues actually are. And what we're seeing, again, a lot of our partners do here when sort of taking this tooling on as a service is, saying to customers, look, we'll take care of transforming you from what you've got to what this is. But more importantly, we'll overnight be able to transform the way you do monitoring, the way you do visibility, the way you troubleshoot problems, and the way you kind of give a level of service to all of your users, even if they're at home. Because we can no longer look at the home as a, best effort when it comes to performance and monitoring. It needs to be at least as good as the office, especially since, still today, most users are spending more time at home than in the office. So that gives great visibility for the user at home, but that very same capability also works from the office. So wanting to determine everything about application performance from a fixed location, and by the way, that includes OT-based devices that are sitting behind SD-WAN, being able to capture the type of device, the type of the application, and actually determine what the end-to-end user experience is for those users and devices, all the way from the left-hand side to the right-hand side and back. That's very, very unique capability, and it's giving our customers the confidence to be able to transform, to such a solution. So, like I said, aside from whatever the path looks like to getting customers to something like this, the ability for you to not have to stand up a whole bunch of complex tooling, if you're going to manage such a solution for your customers, is also a huge benefit. Because as I said, all of this is cloud delivered. It's all effectively SaaS hosted by Palo Alto, and we're just giving you the ability to to deploy and operate such a service with all the right sort of tooling. So that's what that solution sort of looks like. So if I just spend a few minutes walking through what else, because if we're kind of delivering this fully integrated, fully unified end-to-end SASE solution, including all of the security capability that customers are going to need, all of the edge networking and SD-WAN that customers are going to need, and then all of the fully integrated visibility, monitoring, and tooling that's required to operate it. We often get questions of, well, what's in it for us as a partner? What value are we going to add to our customers? So on the screen here is just several examples of what we see a lot of our partner base doing. And often, it depends on what level of maturity the customer is actually at. Is this something where they are starting from the absolute beginning and they've got no idea how to transform? And that's where, a lot of consulting services around, assessments of networks and applications to determine, what traffic flows look like, what does performance look like now for a user at home, or what does it look like now for a user, sitting in a branch office? When we move more and more applications towards cloud, yes, that gives business value, but what impact does that have on the user? Is performance better or worse? So again, all of the integrated tooling in the SASE capability allows you to go to a customer and say, let's start using the technology to start determining what your environment actually looks like, and then we can start to show you what it's going to look like, later on. Similarly with security, again, as you'd expect, we're Palo Alto, we take security pretty seriously. So, doing a bunch of, security-based assessments, especially if we're talking to customers who have had Palo Alto's next-gen firewalls at the perimeter for some time and, use it and trust it. And now we're sort of shifting more of that capability towards cloud. Those customers want to know that we're not going to, open up security holes, and we can still deliver that. So again, these security assessments and documenting risk and showing them, especially what risk there is when you start shifting more and more users, outside of that controlled environment into off-prem. So that's a big one. One of the biggest we see, partners doing is the design services, because, having the ability to look and understand and see what that's going to look like when you transform is pretty big. SASE can be a huge change for a lot of our customers. So, walking them through design, walking them through, the way applications are going to flow, showing them what it will look like from a user in an office going to, Office 365, for example, and what sort of capabilities we can apply to make sure those mission critical applications, get the level of performance that they actually need. Then, of course, implementation is probably an obvious one, but we definitely see most of our customers still look to the partner community to help them, deploy, implement, integrate. Our Prisma SASE is a very open architecture with a lot of open APIs to make sure it can, integrate into, technologies far beyond just what Palo Alto is doing. So that's a huge one for SASE. But the one thing about SASE is, you can get something big up and running far more quickly than it would have taken to deploy, a whole bunch of networking and security across a large, estate in the past. And then typically our customers, still coming back to us and our partners to make sure that, there's a lot of ongoing optimization, because of course things change, application mixes change, usage and users tend to change. And then what we are seeing a lot more of now is our managed service partners wrapping up all of this into a full end-to-end managed service. As I said, it's pretty easy to do. And in fact, what we've done recently, specifically to help our partners build a managed service without having to build a huge amount of stuff, if you like, is that our controller and management plane is all cloud delivered. So as I said earlier, there's nothing to build. You get your tenant if you're managing on behalf of multiple customers. We also have multi-tenancy cloud management, so you can manage your customers appropriately. One of the other things we've made sure of is to make sure that we've got all these open APIs. So whatever tooling or operational technology you might already have in place to operate such a thing, allows you to integrate that into our management plane as well. And then we're doing a lot more on the right-hand side here with flexible service management, which comes into, whether it's self-service or allowing our partners to very quickly, change and optimize and deliver the right level of SLA and licensing is a big part of what we're doing as well. So that's pretty much it. That's kind of what our SASE is, what sort of makes it unique, and hopefully you can see that there is a lot of play there for our partner base to work with our customers on, educating our customers on what this is and what it should be, but also getting them from that point A of what they've got today all the way to right-hand side, which could be a fully managed SASE service. So that is it from me. Thank you very much.
Great, thanks very much, Joe. Great presentation. Really good insight into the SASE use case. I thought that was really particularly interesting. So next on the agenda is Mike Contal. He's the channel lead for SD-WAN at Extreme Networks. Mike, over to you.
Thanks, Dave. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mike Contoft, and what I want to do over the next 15 to 20 minutes is just give you some insight from what I think you can be doing to help your customers as they look to adopt SASE as a technology across their networks. Much like as Joe's just highlighted, just begin with what's actually driving the change and why this adoption of SASE is being so marketed and hyped about in the marketplace. So what we've seen over the last decade or so, initially driven by the movement of applications to the cloud, and more latterly accelerated really by the pandemic, where lots of your customers and as well as yourselves had to work out how to get access to all of the applications that are critical for running the business for the users and customers from everyone working from a home environment. And what that's created is a massive change to the distribution of workloads. So whether the applications are coming from the cloud, the users are accessing them from home, whilst they're on the move from airport buildings, on a train, or actually back in a branch office. They still want to have the best possible performance of those applications, and IT managers still need to make them secure. So this move has meant we've had to see us change from what was historically a data center-centric WAN infrastructure to one which we call the infinite enterprise, where you're securely creating the application access for these users across the whole network. You don't need to just take mine and Joe's word for it. There's enough consultants out there who will give you various statistics to back that up. Just going to bring up and highlight a couple of the statistics on this slide. I think the one on the left is really important in terms of what's happening to businesses. If they're not actually moving in this way and actually looking to digitize and how to make the best of digitizing their organizations, then it's Deloitte's saying that within the next 5 years, those businesses will be doomed to fail. That doesn't mean they'll go out of business, but they will struggle to compete and survive. So digitizing is a must-do activity for IT leaders inside different organizations. And the other interesting one, which I think is really important for the channel, is this one on the right-hand side, where 93% of mid-market global organizations, the ones we are typically selling to, they will tell you they've got IT skills shortages. And that obviously creates services opportunities for you as channel partners to go and support those customers delivering the technologies that they need to do in order for them to be successful. So Joe did a really good job, I think, of explaining some of the elements of SASE. This is Gartner's definition. I think it's sometimes created a bit of confusion in terms of what it means. Secure access service edge doesn't really stand for very much in my brain, but I think what we can see, it effectively involves both security and networking connectivity. And most importantly, it needs to be delivered in a single cloud-delivered platform. I think that's the most important part about SASE that Gartner has highlighted. It's all about the movement of applications into the cloud, access to them, and therefore that needs to be delivered from a cloud-delivered platform. So in terms of making that journey to SASE, what do you do? Where can your customers start? Interestingly, Joe highlighted the importance of SD-WAN. SD-WAN is a fairly well-established technology now, and It's been around probably since around 2015, 2016, when it's in its first embryonic stages, been more market adopted over the last 2 to 3 years. And that now creates the foundation of SASE. It's really important to have a flexible SD-WAN environment that allows your customers to have a foundation to move to SASE. So building that platform, I think, is a great place to start on the journey of moving to SASE. These stats also back that up. I talked about it being mainstream. You can still see that it's a growing revenue. These are global numbers, but you can pretty much take a 25% number to get to an EMEA number, which probably, interestingly, having seen Joe's slides, they pretty much stack up to be very similar. It's still argued that SD-WAN's 2 years before mainstream. Most importantly, at least a third of the market are now considering implementing SD-WAN. Sometimes we think all these customers have moved already, but there's still a lot of customers are still out there working on legacy networks, still very much router-centric. They haven't adopted SD-WAN technologies. So there's still a third. And of those enterprises that have implemented SD-WAN already, surprisingly, many of them are now coming back to market to look at their SD-WAN 2, for want of a better phrase, and taking the learning that they've had from the implementations that they've done and knowing what they want to do for SD-WAN going forward. So, even the 34% that have implemented are still a market opportunity. So SD-WAN is an existing market. It's in a market you can be selling into and adopting already if you haven't already done so. Also highlighting from here, it's very much, when you look at what customers are valuing from implementing SD-WAN, what they're seeing they want to get from implementing SD-WAN, security is a key factor, but also application performance. I think Joe mentioned both of these as well. So that backs that up. But most interestingly, cost savings, which have traditionally been seen as being one of the drivers of SD-WAN originally. It was all about cost savings from being able to replace MPLS with internet consumer grade broadband and getting the same level of performance. Those cost savings are not what are driving companies to adopt SD-WAN now. It's much more about having a more agile network, having application performance and security. And again, supporting the message that was on the previous slide around the service opportunity for partners. 98% of SD-WAN adopters are looking to use external partners somewhere along the migration journey. And I've also heard 70% or so implementing it as either a managed or co-managed service. So there's a definite services opportunity, not just for the deploying the solution, but the ongoing management and operation of that solution for those customers that creates a good, profitable revenue stream for business partners. So how do you decide what's the best SD-WAN for SASE? So much of the SD-WAN that was originally deployed was very much built around being an on-premise orchestrator that was set up and designed from that environment. So I think critical, if you're looking towards moving your customers to a SASE environment, is making sure that it's a cloud-first SD-WAN, that it's been designed to be delivered from the cloud. And also that it has a level of flexibility in the way that it gets deployed. It's a very difficult scenario if you go into a customer and you're basically wanting to say you're going to have to rip out all of your routers, you're going to have to change all of your connectivity and move to this infrastructure on this SD-WAN. That's a quite dramatic change. Whereas if you can evolve by putting routers in line with existing routers, replacing when they come end of life, allowing customers to use different transport mechanisms according to what's right for each branch office, be that MPLS, be that consumer broadband, be that even a satellite connection or a 4G, 5G connection. You want to make sure your SD-WAN provider gives you that level of flexibility. And then obviously the platform needs to be one that will bring itself and allow the customer to add in the elements around security that will bring it to a full SASE compliant environment as they grow and they need those technologies, whether that's cloud security, cloud delivered security, whether it's ZTNA, etc. As the customer develops into those areas and needs that technology to support their businesses, then you want your SD-WAN platform to provide that infrastructure. So here at Extreme, we're just launching the first iteration of Extreme Cloud SD-WAN. It's essentially taking the SD-WAN product that we acquired when we made the acquisition of EMEA, aligning it with our Extreme Cloud IQ infrastructure that we have for managing access points and LAN side infrastructure to create a fully integrated Extreme Cloud SD-WAN. So key elements for me that are really important in terms of the SASE journey. This is very much a cloud-operated SD-WAN. It's been designed to be delivered from the cloud with multi-tenant functionality. And that essentially means that you can set a customer's network up very quickly, which reduces deployment time and it basically brings a faster time to revenue for you, and that you can charge for services. And also for your customer, importantly, it's a faster time for them to get their return on the investment that they're making by deploying the solution. It's also important to know that we've delivered the solution to be highly competitively priced, and also with additional services that you can add into it as the customer grows and develops. The solution that we have has been very much designed from the EMEA strength, which is application performance and also visibility of those applications, much in the same way as Joe was describing. What's critical is for the user to know which of their applications are performing. How do they make sure that they can set SLAs for those applications to be the high performing ones, and potentially, less critical business applications, which may be generic internet access, are given a lower priority on the network, so that the ones that are most critical to the business are the ones that get best use. And unique for Extreme is that we're delivering all of this in a single subscription, which includes not only the software that you need to run the device, it includes the appliance that's required at the branch site, and also the maintenance for that appliance, along with some digital customer success technologies that will enable you and your customers to get up and working more quickly. So all of those functions added together, we believe creates a compelling argument for introducing SD-WAN into your customers that haven't already done so. Finally, if you want to know any further information, then happy to talk to you in our virtual booth. We're also arranging a webinar on April the 7th, which you're welcome to register for, and we can give you further information around the technology and details about how you can get involved. Other than that, if there's any questions, more than happy to take any.
Thanks, Mike. Really looking forward to seeing the new Extreme Cloud SD-WAN launch in April. Yeah, thank you very much for the presentation. Excellent. Next, we have Matthias Johnson, Solutions Engineer from Broadcom. Over to you, Matthias.
Hi, everybody. Can you see my screen? Yes, perfect. So, hi everybody, my name is Matthias Johnson and I'm a solution engineer at Broadcom, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about Symantec and our approach to SASE. And the risk of repeating what everyone else have been talking about, I'm going to just briefly talk a little bit about what SASE actually is. So SASE is a new network and security model which converges network as a security and cloud security into one model, which is named Secure Access Service Edge. And what is actually the promise of SASE, and what is it the SASE framework actually trying to solve? So the SASE framework is trying to push simple, flexible, and scalable network and security to the service edge. This means that users who are connecting either remote from the branch office, from the HQ, or even mobile users, and going to SaaS applications, private clouds, or even the internet, are all going to have the same security and network components and architecture to go through, regardless of where in the world they are. And so at Symantec, we focus a lot on the SSE part of the SASE. So what is SSE? It stands for Security Service Edge. And SSE is a subset of security capabilities in SASE, such as secure web gateway, data loss prevention, zero trust network access, and more. And Symantec has been working for a long time with products like these. And so we have a pretty comprehensive security stack of capabilities that we can provide both on-prem and in the cloud. And what's important about the huge range of security capabilities that we have is that we integrate all of these capabilities into a Symantec Enterprise Cloud. And in the Symantec Enterprise Cloud, information and intelligence from all of these different capabilities are added into a global intelligence network where we can start to draw conclusions on what if a user is uploading malware in one part of the network, then we can limit that user's access to other components in the SaaS, such as data sharing and such. And what does this actually mean for the business? So it means, regardless if it's an employee, a supplier, or a contractor, and if they're coming, and whether or not they're coming from a managed or an unmanaged device, and regardless of where they're going, to email, on-prem, or even SaaS applications, they're going to go through the same security framework, and the data that's going to be applied and the risk controls that are going to be applied is going to be based on all of the different access capabilities and components that's used in the enterprise cloud. So with that, let's actually go in and just see the Symantec SASE framework a little bit and what actually builds the entire platform. So first of all, the connections needs to get to the Symantec SASE framework, and this is done by connectivity, so explicit or proxy forwarding, SD-WAN connections, which Mike was just talking about, VPN, and even agents, and all of these connections goes to a secure web gateway, which essentially is the core of the SASE framework. And once we get to the secure web gateway, we can start adding components such as authentication. We can SSL decrypt, and once we've decrypted SSL, then we can do file inspection. And once we have the files accessible and we have decrypted the SSL, that's when we can start adding these advanced security services and these capabilities such as remote browser isolation, DLP inspection, and sandboxing as well. In order to kind of get a wider sense of how this works in action, I have a couple of slides here that we're going to go through, and we're going to see how the SASE framework provides fast and secure access to resources for all users. And so in the example where we have a user attempting to access the internet, hosted corporate applications, or even the public cloud, from any location, they're consistently going to get redirected to the nearest Symantec SASE cloud service point. And once we get to the cloud service point, we can start applying the security controls from the secure web gateway. And so this means, as I said previously, authentication, we can SSL decrypt. And if we go into the internet, we can do cloud firewalling as well. So for software on the client, we can add a policy for firewalling and limiting connectivity from not just the browser, but also other applications. And so once we've SSL decrypted the traffic and authenticated, and we can actually look at the files, as I said previously, we can start adding all of these advanced security services. And that's for any destination on the web for user. If we move on to corporate hosted applications, at this point we can start leveraging the zero trust network access, where we can add connectivity to on-premise data centers and also public clouds Azure and AWS and give access into corporate applications that's hosted by the businesses themselves. And we can add security on this, so we can add DLP as well, and then sandboxing for connections going to the internally hosted applications. And if a user is going to a SaaS application, then we actually have connectivity through CASB directly integrated into hundreds of SaaS applications. And And this means that we don't just see what the traffic is telling us when it's going through the secure web gateway. Rather, we have integrations with the SaaS applications themselves, so we can see more information than the traffic would give us. And then we can base decisions upon that, whether or not a user has access to root directories and root folders, and whether or not a malware or a maliciously compromised user would the extent of the risk that that user would have. And we can add, as I said, authentication and SSL decryption, and then we can add all of these security capabilities. And one interesting security capability for SaaS applications is when a user is connecting from an unmanaged device, what we can do then is we can add remote browser isolation. So essentially, it means that when a user is accessing from a unmanaged computer, they can go directly to any SaaS application that the business is using without actually going and connecting to that SaaS application, because they're connecting to the isolation engine. And in that sense, we can essentially close off the entire risk of a user on an unmanaged device going to a SaaS application and infecting that SaaS application by uploading malicious files and sending to colleagues as well, as such, because they're never actually sending the data to that SaaS application. And all of this information and all of these connection points are all exportable to CM tools and other SOC tools, which really brings home for the security operations center, where they can do their work and they can really see everything from a centralized point of view, rather than having multiple sources of logs coming in. They have one central point where all of the logs are coming from, and they can see pretty much everything that goes on in the SASE framework. And this really expands on the possibilities of the SOC and how they work. And all of these capabilities are available in the cloud. And how can this be low latency if it's in the cloud? And how do we provide fast and secure access to all the users? So Symantec has entered a partnership a couple of years ago with Google Cloud Platform. So the entire Symantec SASE framework is running on Google Cloud Platform. And so regardless of where in the world, there's almost always a Google Cloud Platform data center close by. And for the users, this means that wherever they are going to have a rather fast connection to the Google Cloud Platform, and that's going to connect them directly to the SASE plane. And from the SASE plane, because we are running everything in GCP, we can leverage Google's peering agreements with other vendors and all of the SaaS application providers. I'm sorry. And so when the user is exiting the SASE plane, they're going to leverage the peering agreements by Google. And this means that they're going to have the lowest possible latency when they're going to the internet, the ERs or the SaaS applications. And for a admin perspective, this means that security policies are going to be pushed all across the world to all SASE service points from one centralized management console. And so partnering with Google also brings us the scalability. Whenever Google spins up a new data center anywhere in the world, because we have built our entire cloud security stack on scalable technology, we can spin up a data center in hours after Google have successfully deployed theirs. And so when we talk about SASE, we are talking a lot about security. And so what Symantec really brings to the table is a comprehensive history of working with threat intelligence. And so Symantec has around the world more than 175 million protected endpoints, so more than 80 million secure web gateway users, more than 160 million email users, and all of these different areas provide threat intelligence and really defines the threat landscape. So anything that, if we see a threat in the email area, then we can apply security for that on the network and endpoint as well. And all of this goes into the hands of the threat researchers. So we have a huge team of threat researchers that work constantly on trying to stay ahead of the curve when it comes to malware and cyber attacks. And for a lot of our customers, some of the attacks that they should have been victims to has actually been stopped already in the networking layer. And this is thanks to the shared intelligence of all customers and all users throughout the global intelligence network. And so when Gartner coined the term SASE, one of their recommendations and strong points was reduce complexity now on the network security side by moving to ideally one vendor. And this is a really important point. So when Gartner said this, they had taken into account that if you try to go for an approach where you buy cloud security components and capabilities from multiple vendors, you're going to essentially be limited by the integration between these vendors. So whatever the capabilities are in one product, you're not necessarily going to be able to utilize that in another product because the integration is not there, and it's limited to the APIs and the agreements between the security companies and vendors that you purchase the products from. But if you move to one vendor, then it's going to be a hell of a lot easier for that vendor to integrate all of their components and to bring more value, as I mentioned before, threat intelligence. But there's also user behavior analytics. So if we see that one user is acting in one way in the SASE applications, then we can adapt security components and features to prevent that user from accessing other things. So if we can confirm that that client is infected, then we can essentially lock them out of resources immediately wherever they are in the world. And the way that Symantec brings this to a customer is we have something we call for the web protection suite. And so the web protection suite is a cost-effective support for remote workers. It's a single per user per year investment in a rich set of capabilities. And it's also a SASE foundation. So it comes with a secure web gateway, whether or not it's on the cloud or on premise. And it comes with the key components of the SASE framework. So this means that if a customer is currently on premise and they have a hard time figuring out when they're going to do the move to the cloud, what Web Protection Suite offers is they essentially get proxy and secure web gateway. So if they want to start using it on premise and they want to start actually working towards the cloud and towards a cloud proxy, then they can start doing that at their own pace because they get the cloud secure web gateway as well. So they can start tinkering and start testing the secure web gateway in the cloud and finding out how they're going to implement it in their own environment. And all of this in one protection suite. It also future-proofs flexibility. So if they suddenly have a massive rise, like we saw with COVID, when all of these users started working from home and started streaming huge amounts of data in video and audio, then the security infrastructure wasn't really sized for that. So with Web Protection Suite, it gives the end user and the customer unlimited access to a scalable networking security solution. And that's both for on-prem and for the cloud. And improved security efficacy as well. As I mentioned, the Symantec Global Intelligence Network, it integrates with the secure web gates and SASE solutions. And based on the millions of malicious files and URLs that we see every day, we can really bring that that intelligence to the components which all of the users in the business connects to. And that's it for me. Thank you very much. If there's any questions, please put them in the chat, and I will be happily answer them.
Great. Well, thanks very much, Matthias. In fact, thanks very much to all our presenters this morning. Really interesting and insightful. So just a couple of items to highlight before we head back to the auditorium. Number one, just please make sure you take advantage of those virtual booths just to dig in deeper to these topics that you've heard about this morning. You know, feel free to ask any follow-up questions or explore those vendor offerings in more detail. Don't forget about the virtual treasure hunt. The more you explore the booths, then your chances of winning, you know, becomes greater. So to win this latest smartphone that they're offering. If you want to get a real deep dive into the presented solutions, then check out the Imagine Realized agenda. There'll be different sessions being run throughout the next few weeks. And that's it really. So the agenda will now continue back in the auditorium with the regional partner awards, I believe. Thanks a lot for joining. We'll see you in a minute back in the auditorium.